Okay, so now we're going to use paint.net to do some tricks with green screens and photos. To get started, we'll go to the Windows menu and launch paint.net. And I'm going to start a new file. And I'll make it 1024 by 768. Doesn't matter too much, but you want to have a nice big canvas. Make it 300 dots per inch. And okay, all right. So there's my canvas. I have my background. It's white. I'm going to make that background yellow because that's going to help me as I work on the photo. And so I'll change my color swatch to a nice bright yellow, change to the paint bucket or fill tool, and click on the background, and it turns yellow. I'm going to import a picture that I took in front of a green screen. So I'll go to Layers, Import from File, and I could select any one of these. Try this one. Alright, so here's a photo that I took in front of a green screen. There's a lot of the area that is not in front of the green screen, but that doesn't matter too much. As long as the part that I actually want to use is in front of the green screen, I can crop out the rest. So first of all, I have a selection, so I'm going to go Edit, Deselect to get rid of that selection. Now I can crop this out in one of two ways. If I just want my photo to be smaller using just the portion I'm interested in, I could take the rectangular selection tool and select the portion I want, and then use the crop button, and it'll crop it down, effectively make the portion I'm interested in zoom or bigger, and it'll throw away all the stuff that was not selected. Okay, the other way I could do it is if I go back and deselect that, I could use the rectangular selection tool to just simply cut out the pixels by selecting the junk and then hitting the delete key, and it will delete that part of the photograph and just show me the background. Now for some reason sometimes it deletes the part of the background too. I'm not sure why that happens. Let's see if I do it. Let's see, I keep going backward. That must be from when I cropped it, that yellow swatch on the background. Okay, let's import the file again, the photo. Alright, I already did that. I guess my photo is much bigger than my canvas was. That's probably why, because as soon as I imported it, you see I only have that little bit of yellow. So I'm just going to take my fill tool and fill it in again. Now I've got an entirely yellow background. Alright, I'm going to uncheck the background layer for right now, just so I don't accidentally do anything to it at this point. So I'm going to take that rectangular selection, make sure I don't have anything selected yet, and create the area I want to delete. It will leave the dimensions of my photo alone, but oh, I gotta be on the background. I accidentally deleted that from the background. Okay, so it will, as long as I have my layer activated on top, there we go. It will delete all of those pixels from my photo. And you can see the background's still yellow, but it deleted everything, all the pixels out of the selection I made. So if I turn the background back on, the visibility of that layer back on, you can see the yellow background shining through. So that yellow background is going to help me see the green better as I do some detail work. So I'm going to throw away all this stuff as well. And we'll do detail work. I don't want to get any of my actual body deleted at this point, so I'll just take nice big chunks and not worry about getting real up close. And take that and get as much of the photo that's not green out as possible. That'll make it easier. Like I said, we can zoom in, so view, zoom in, or you see the cheat there, Control and plus is a keyboard shortcut you can use. You can also do Control, and if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, hold down Control and scroll at the same time and it'll zoom. Alright, so I'll continue to take out anything that's not green as much as possible. We can move that palette out of the way. Alright, that's pretty good. Now, let's get this gray out. Okay, now we can start using the magic wand, and that'll select colors that are similar to the one I click on. Alright, and the tolerance level decides, that helps adjust how close the color has to be to get selected. So if I have a really high tolerance, it's going to choose more pixels. If I have a really low tolerance, it's going to have to be much closer to the color that I actually click on in order to get selected. So I'm going to start with it around 30%. Okay. That got rid of all that little white part of the door jamb. By the way, also you can change whether you're working with the whole image or with just the current layer. Leave it on layer. You can also change what mode it's in, whether it's contiguous mode, which means that everything that's touching what you click on, or global mode, which means it'll select colors from the entire photo, whether or not they touch the actual color you click on. So for example, let's say what the difference would be is, let's say that I zoomed in and I was trying to get rid of all this green. Okay, if I have it in contiguous mode, it's only going to get this green here, and it won't get any of the green that's cut off by some of my hair there. So if I click there, it's going to cut out the green on the outside of my hair, but it won't get it on the inside of my hair. And on the other hand, if let's deselect, if I change it to global, it'll take all the colors from the entire photo that are close to this shade of green, whether they touch or not. So now you can see that it's selected in here inside those locks of hair. Alright, now depending on your tolerance levels and things, that may do what you want or may not. So you just have to kind of play with it and find out. I'm going to go back and keep working on the parts of the picture that are not green. And I want it in contiguous mode for right now. Alright, so I was trying to get rid of these areas. And let's try, I'm in contiguous mode, magic wand, let's try getting this door. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then the white part of the door jamb. Alright, now I have a little island of kind of a grayish white right there, and I don't know if you can see it, but right in here there's some white. And when it gets down to these fine details, you have a couple of options. You can just continue using the magic wand, or just switch to the eraser tool and set your eraser to an appropriate size that lets you do some detail work but doesn't make it too tedious. and then you can just take out those things. Now this was part of the wood of the door. Sometimes you get a little halo around your clothing and your skin and your hair. You can shave that off with the eraser, like right in there is some brown. Alright, and now I'll zoom back out and we'll see how we're looking. Alright, it's looking good. I have some door down here, and I'll switch back to the magic wand because it's pretty similar in color, and then I think that's going to be easy enough to do with the eraser tool. Move that palette. Here's palette out of the way, and just kind of clean that up a bit. Alright, now I've got it down to just the green. Now when you're taking a photo that you intend to crop the background out of with a chroma key effect or a green screen effect, it's probably a good idea. It'll make your work easier and less tedious to have your hair brushed pretty flat. I didn't do that. I didn't do it a little bit on purpose just to show you how you can deal with it when you have some green in the centers of things. So I'm going to set my threshold pretty low, switch over to the magic wand, set my tolerance threshold pretty low, like let's set it around 20%. And I'll change the mode to global, and that will pick up all the green hues from all over the photo that are left. Now of course you also don't want to be wearing green. If you are wearing green, it'll crop the green out. So if you want your clothing, be sure to be wearing something that contrasts with green, like red or black, like I'm wearing in this photo. And if you set your tolerance too high, you'll tend to pick up some of the things in your clothing. Like I was noticing, if I set my tolerance really high, it got some of these whiter and grayer shades in my shirt, and then it looked like I had holes in my shirt that you could see through. Alright, so you have to be careful of that. If you are wearing green, and you need to be wearing green for some reason, then use a different color screen, like a red screen or a blue screen. Alright, so tolerance is set down to 20. I'm on my magic wand tool, and I'm going to click in the green area, hit delete. Alright, so these colors that are left were outside of my tolerance level, so I'm going to click in that area that's left, and I'm getting closer. I've got patches of green over here a lot. I've got a little bit of green halo in my hair here, and I can see a little bit of an artifact here. So I'm going to go over here and just erase that artifact. Simple enough with the eraser tool. Alright, and I just noticed there's some pixels there. And then we'll deal with all this green in here. Now it's possible that these greens will match these greens enough that if I select them over here, it'll pick those up too. So let's try that. I'll go back to the magic wand. Why is it on? Oh, that was the brush tool. Magic wand, my tolerance is at 20, and I'll click on this green. Okay, I see some of it got selected over on the opposite side. So I'm starting to get it cleaned up a bit. And it's all detail work, it looks like to me now. And I'm just going to inspect the edges of my clothing and the part of the pictures that I want to keep. And I see these artifacts here that I'd like to just use the eraser tool to clean up. And I'll zoom way in, change to the eraser. You don't want to make your lines look too straight, or it will look unnatural when you look at the photograph in actual size. Alright, that's pretty good. Zoom out. Alright, so I still have that kind of green halo effect. Looks like I dyed my hair or something. So I'm going to zoom way in on those greens. Go back to my magic wand and see if I can get those out without taking stuff that I want to keep. So there's my selection. I'll zoom out, and that looks pretty good. It's the selection is only just around my head and on the very edges of my shirt. So let's see what happens if I delete. That's looking pretty darn good. Okay, so there's only little bits of green on the edges of my hair. Let's see. You know, at some point you may not be able to get it perfect, but keep trying until it just takes too much. And you can always turn your tolerance down, and that will help get only the things you want and not take too much of what you don't want. Alright, so that's really looking pretty good. Let's see about maybe yeah, it's looking better. Just keep grabbing those greens. Alright, I'm going to try some of the green over on this side. Like maybe I really like that. I'm just going to take the eraser and clean up in here. So you can kind of see that a little bit and call it a day. And we'll turn the size of that eraser tool down. That's pretty good. Let's get that in there. Alright, I'm satisfied with that. If we were real experts, we could keep tweaking. If we were really patient and we're trying to get perfection, we could keep clicking on those greens and see if we can get even more. Let me just try right in here and see what happens. Ooh, that's pretty nice. Okay, so that yellow helps us see those artifacts that sometimes get left behind, and it really makes the greenish tones pop. But when we turn it off, or we put it on a white background, let's see what happens. I'll just swap my colors around. So now my foreground color is white, and I'll fill my background with white. Whoops, I'm sorry. I didn't switch to the paint tool. So switch to the paint bucket tool. White is my color. And now I'll turn on my background. That doesn't look too bad. Alright, turn that background off again. And if I wanted to just use this photo without any background, I could do File, Save As, and I should always save it as a paint.net file first in case I want to come back to it later. So demo headshot transparency green screen effect. Alright, so now I have it saved in the paint.net format, so I can come back and work on it later if I wanted to fine-tune it or change it in some way. But then if I want to use it in another graphics program, I'm going to go Save As and change it to PNG. Now if I want that transparency, I have to use PNG. JPEG does not support transparency, so that's one of the reasons that I just always save it in PNG as a habit. Alright, so it's going to ask me to flatten, which means that I'm going to lose all this layering and everything. It's going to look just like a regular old graphic file or photo. So I won't be able to do any going back and manipulating the layers and things in paint.net after I do this with this particular graphic file. I could go to the paint.net version that I saved previously and continue working on that one. Now, I could open this and change things to it, but I just wouldn't be able to have all the layering and things that were already built into it. So once I flatten it, it's going to smush it all down into one layer, and that's that. So I'll flatten, it'll save it, and you'll see now in the area that I saved it, which happens to be my downloads folder, that I have this version. The black here means that there's no background on it, and this version, okay, which gives me my layers and so on. Okay, now if I wanted to, instead of using this one, if I wanted to create my background as if I were in another location, I could take this version with the layers and transparency, and I could import another photo that has the background that I want, and I go to layers, import from file, and let's say I wanted to be floating in outer space. I can open up some picture of space that I found and increase it. Now, right now, the space layer is on top of the photo layer, so you can't see me, but if I just rearrange these and drag the space layer beneath the photo layer, now I'm floating in space. I'm trying to make this palette bigger. There we go. There we go. All right, back over here. So I could be in space. I could take a photo of myself and move it around. I could resize it. Now you want to be careful. You generally don't want to stretch it so that you look either big and tall, fat and skinny, or wide, too wide, or too tall and skinny. So if you hold down, let's see, I'm going to undo and go back to the way it was to start with. Okay, there it was, the original way. And if you take it and, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing there. Whoa, that was a selection. Undo. Okay. There we go, deselect. If I were to take my photo, find the edge there, and so that I don't make myself too fat or too skinny, I hold down the shift key while I pull on a corner, and it keeps everything in proportion. So always hold down that shift key when you're changing the size of something that you need to stay in proportion, like someone's face or something like that. So I can totally resize this. I can spin it, rotate it in any direction I want. I could probably flip-flop it. Let's see. Flip horizontally. So now I'm looking the other direction. I can make myself upside down. Okay. And there I am, pretty much back the way I started. And let's see. Alright. So let's say I didn't want to be in space. I'll just delete the space photo. Let's say I wanted to be in the glove next to the Coke bottle in AT&T Park. So instead of a picture of space, I'll pick up a picture of AT&T Park that has the glove and the Coke bottle, and I'll hold down that shift key so it stays in proportion as I resize it. I love Madison Bumgarner, so I love that he's in the photo too. Let's see, image. No, that's not what I wanted. I was hoping I could flip that canvas around, but we'll just leave it like that. And we'll move my picture on top, and then take my picture. Undo that. I need to deselect first. Alright, take my picture and put it right there. Hold down that shift key when I resize it. And there, it looks like I'm right on top of the Docker sign inside the glove. Alright, so I could take that. I might want to shift photo a bit. And save as, and save that out as a PNG. Okay, and hit save if that's what I wanted to do. Or let's say that instead of being at AT&T Park, I want it to be at the Washington Memorial, or no, the Lincoln Memorial. Anything I could find a picture of I could use, but I had already downloaded one of the Lincoln Memorial. Some of you will see that on your Washington, D.C. trip in 7th or 8th grade. Okay, and there I am looking. Maybe I could be Honest Abe. Alright, so now it's the Mr. Bennett Memorial. Just make that big enough to cover up all of Lincoln's face. There you go. Maybe I could change it to, I wonder if that would work. I'll adjust it to sepia, because those tones are pretty sepia. I could probably just cut out my face and crop it to that. Oh, no, that didn't do what I wanted. That cropped the whole picture. Anyway, I could crop just my face. Play around with that. You get the idea. So now, if we're going to be using one of these pictures in another program, Draw.io is one that we use sometimes. I can just start up my document.
Ashley?
And take the photo I wanted to use and whoops. Oh, darn it. Okay, and I can just take it, whichever photo that I ended up with that I wanted to use. Let's see, there is my PNG with the transparency. Drop it on there. Oh, it was too big, so let's see if choosing the resize option will help. There we go. And again, probably hold down the shift key to keep my proportions, and I can arrange it on my canvas wherever I want. And put a text box in there. Oops. Alright, Mr. Bennett, computers and technology, and then I'll change the size of the type to be much bigger. choose, let's try Georgia for my font. We'll make it bold and change it to a nice amber color. Alright, and I could even layer these one on top of the other. So that it became kind of a little logo. Alright, so that's how you can use Paint.net to manipulate a photo that you can then incorporate into other documents, and especially how to cut out a background taken against a green screen.